But you kind of fall into the presidency
Yes.
period, no?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, tell me, when did the connection start?
At the time, I was working at the DFA and with Secretary Roberto Romulo.
Yeah, okay.
And I think the first time that I was in his vicinity
Okay.
was when we went to Vietnam. Sorry, not Vietnam.
Vietnam, 95.
Sorry, no, we went first
earlier.
to China.
Oh, okay.
Yes, 93,
Okay.
94, something like that. And I was part of the protocol team put together from, I was sent because I think they thought I could speak a little Mandarin and it might be helpful. So I was sent from the DFA to be part of the protocol team, join Mr. Painor and his group, and help out with logistics and all sorts of things.
Ano to, preparations or the actual?
Nandun na, the actual na.
Okay,
Yes,
actual
that
na.
was my very first
Visit.
one. Yes.
Wow, okay.
So it was medyo, baptism by fire because I had never done this before and I didn't actually always know what to do. I just sort of followed along, and that was sort of the start of my being part of the group that went with the visits also.
Okay.
That was my first exposure to the president at that time, and Mrs. Ramos to a lesser extent. Only when in 1994, I had expressed interest to Secretary Romulo that I wanted to leave for a more foundation sort of work, NGO sort of work, development sort of work. That si Angie Santa Catalina asked if she could get me for the office of the First Lady, because the First Lady also was chairperson, honorary chairperson of a lot of foundations, and so she needed somebody to keep track.
So you
all.
actually you wanted to get out of
Yes.
the DFA department work,
Yes.
and you wanted to focus on.
I really, my education was really development economics, and so I
Okay.
really wanted to do development work.
Okay.
Or I
Okay.
thought I did at that time. I wanted to do development work. And so I asked permission from Secretary Romulo that I told him I was interested in doing more non-government work. And he was I think he was considering whether to to let me go, I guess, when Amba Angie talked to him and said that she heard I was interested in doing this kind of work.
Oh,
And,
okay.
to keep me in government, maybe he would consider my transfer to Malacanang.
That wasn't things that. Yeah, keeping you in government, but
Yes, it's no longer with him, but at least, because of the visits, I would still work with him in that capacity, but not directly
the
anymore.
foundation work, kamo.
Yeah, well, NGO, because
NGO.
as a first lady is chairperson automatically by the position. She becomes a chairperson or honorary chairperson of like 30 foundations.
Ganon.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
and at that time in her office there was nobody who was actually nakatutok lang. Wala. I mean,
Doing that.
Angie was working on it, but she was also doing all sorts of things.
Yeah,
She was doing
yeah.
protocol, she was doing speeches, she was doing everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think she thought maybe having somebody who would attend the meetings on behalf of Mrs. Ramos, make reports, that sort of thing, would be a good idea.
Okay.
And so that's how I came to be in Mrs.
That's
Ramos's.
how you got into
Yes, Mrs. Ramos's office.
OFL,
Yes.
Office of the First
Yes,
Lady.
that's right.
Technically, there's no Office of the First Lady, but there was.
Yes, it was under the office of the president,
Yes,
actually.
yes. Oh, wow. No. Tell me, first impressions of Mrs. Ramos.
She's very. The first impression I had of her was that she's a very reluctant first lady, because I attended one of her interviews at the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
And somebody had asked her, when you're finished being first lady, what do you want to be remembered as? And she said she's okay with not being remembered. She said she just wanted to do her work, and then afterwards, when she's done, it's okay if people didn't have. I think she felt that as long as she did her work, and she was secure that she had done her best, that it was fine. it didn't matter what people thought, which is, I think, unusual for a public figure, right? Normally, you become a public figure because you want to be known, and she's definitely not like that. And I think she was consistent until now. I think she's still like that. She's not really a flashy person, and very low key. She had, she has a group of friends, but they're not. They don't have an influence on her in the way I think in previous administrations friends can have influences on public figures.
On the first spouse.
Especially the
Oh,
first spouse.
oh.
I think in her case, she made her own decisions. And I think if some of the friends would overstep their bounds, I think she would quietly talk to them, and it would never happen again.
Oh, talaga.
Stuff like that, I think she's
oh.
really not. She doesn't want. She's really her own person. She makes her own decisions. She thinks things through, and then she makes up her own mind. And she deals with the consequences also.
She came across that way, very
Well,
independent-minded.
in the very beginning, my first impression really of her was that she's a reluctant first lady, and she just has an office because she has to have somebody take care of her schedule, of her travels, of her interviews, that sort of thing.
She didn't run for that office.
No,
anyway.
she didn't. She didn't. That's right.
It's a matter of consequence,
Yes.
because she's
Yes.
married to the president of the
Yes.
republic.
That's right.
Yeah, I understand she was scrambling around for,
I
people
think
to
in the beginning,
fill up the
I think she wanted
office.
a very small group, small team.
Like how many?
I don't know if she had an idea, a number in mind, but I think she was really looking to make it a very small
Lean.
very lean unit. And I mean, in the end, we were only 6 anyway.
That's lean already, actually.
I think so. I think it's pretty lean. I mean, considering the things that she ended up doing as first lady, it was, I think, pretty lean. Yeah.
What was the first meeting like?
Si Amba Angie brought me to see her to introduce me.
Were you hired already by then?
I had already spoken to Ambassador Angie, and she had said that they were interested in. But of course,
You were
it had
being
to.
considered, yeah.
Yes, it had to go through. Mrs. Ramos had to say yes first.
Yes.
So that was the meeting.
Okay.
And
At the palace?
yes,
Okay.
actually, I think at Arlegui.
Arlegui.
Yeah, at
in the
Arlegui, I
residence.
think. I think that was when the interview happened also. That interview I was talking about where she said it's okay if people don't remember her.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the same time, I think.
Oh, and she was doing an interview?
She was doing an interview, that's why we were at Arlegui. Because otherwise we wouldn't be at Arlegui
Yeah.
just to go and visit. We would wait until she would come to Malacanang,
Yes.
and we would talk to her then. But because si Ambassador Angie had to be there for the interview to set things up, make sure things are fine, she told me to come to go along with her. And
Was that still 94? Or 95?
94 or 95. It was toward the end of 94 that I was leaving DFA. So it might have been early 95.
Early 95.
Yeah, that I met her.
But you didn't have any prior
No.
interaction with Mrs. Ramos or FVR? Except for that, through your work with Secretary
With the
Romulo.
visits, yes.
Oh.
Yes, sometimes I'd go with him if he had a presentation to make to Malacanang, and I'd flip his slides for him. But I'm kind of part of the wallpaper. At that point, really just somebody to get things. And
What was the feeling like coming to work for power couple?
actually,
Mrs. Ramos, wife to Edsa Hero, now president.
yes. It was intimidating.
Why so?
A little bit because, well, I'd never been in that kind of circle. I've never been involved in politics of any sort, and have never been in government positions. Had never considered that I would be in government positions. Didn't have ambitions to be in government whatsoever. Before that, it was sort of just by accident that I ended up in government.
Oo.
And suddenly I'm
You're
in
there.
the office of the president.
Oo nga.
You know, and so, you know, it's incredible, hard to believe. But I think, in a way, Mrs. Ramos and I understood her reluctance because I also had the same reluctance to be in those circles.
Ano, ba't ba ako nandito?
Oh, in a way, parang how did I end up here? Medyo ganon.
Oo. Oo.
But you know, if I had to find a place where I could have ringside seat to things that were going on without having to be really involved, that would be the office of the first lady would be where I would go, because she didn't get involved in the politics of it. But at the same time, we were right on the periphery, so you could watch what was going on without being directly involved.
You were there, but you weren't there.
Yes. I was like a fly on the wall, you know. Really. Parang I just felt like, you know, things that were going on, I could see. I didn't have any input into anything. And, you know, I mean, nobody asked my opinion on anything. But you could watch. So it was an interesting time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. And yeah, no? Ringside.
Yes, really.
Ringside, diba?
Really.
You were
That's as close as you can get without actually being in there.
Oh, but what was it that you did specifically for
In the
Mrs.
beginning,
Ramos? Yeah.
I would
You said foundation work.
yes, I would attend the meetings of the foundations and then write up reports and report to her
Send them over
periodically.
to-
Yes, sometimes I guess. Sometimes we would send them over to her. Usually it's really just for documentation. And when Ambassador Angie at that time, who was the chief of staff, would report to her about things, kasama yung mga report, she'd give a little bit of a summary of what that foundation
from what
was.
you,
Yes, from the reports that I made. And then, because I was from the DFA and we had done some of the protocol work, state visits and stuff,
Yeah.
I was also pulled in to do some of that. Protocol
So you
work
accompanied her
sometimes.
also during the foreign visits or something?
Foreign visits, but I wasn't close in. I was usually the one who would, not just foreign visits, but also her events here. I would go and we would talk to the organizers and set down some ground rules. They have questions, we answer, that sort of thing.
Oh, nag-a-advance ka.
Advance. Usually parang ocular inspection muna. And then, and then a few days later is the event, and then sometimes I'm advanced, sometimes I'm close in. Ganon. Yeah.
Up to, how long did you stay, Cathy?
I was there till the very end.
Till 98.
Yes,
Oh, cool.
yes.
Okay. Nice.
Yes. Also unintentionally.
Also, ganon, you didn't want to stay that long?
In 96, nagpaalam naman ako kay ma'am that, si Ambassador Angie had gone back to DFA. She was already posted abroad.
Yeah.
And I said, I wasn't comfortable being the head of the office at that time. And so I said, if you have somebody else in mind, feel free to bring them in.
Yeah, you became
Sort of by
Chief of
accident
staff,
also.
COS.
By accident also, because I was the most senior, most experienced something in that office. Hindi naman most senior. There were those who've been there longer, but I guess my exposure siguro.
Yeah.
So I was the one who sort of became, took over that position when she left. And I said if she had somebody else in mind, that, please bring them in. And she said, well, that was the year of APEC. The APEC was coming to town for the first time.
Yes.
And she didn't feel like we should change anybody, right before that, because there was a lot of work that had to be done, and you can't bring somebody in who's totally new. It's difficult. So she told me just to stay until then, and then afterwards we talk about bringing somebody else in, or that sort of thing. And she just never got around to getting somebody else. We stayed until the APEC, and then after that,
Hindi na napag-usapan.
hindi na talaga. I mean, it just continued. We just continued on, and and I just stayed in that position until the end.
Oh.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was she like as a boss? I mean,
Very considerate, very very undemanding. She will take what you give her. If I report something, it's never, there's no criticism about, why did you do it that way or that thing. She was very, she'll let you do it the way you are comfortable doing it. And wala, ganun lang talaga siya. She's just very kind and very accepting of people.
hindi ba taskmaster tulad ng asawa?
Hindi. Not to us anyway. I don't know if anyone else feels like she was a taskmaster. But not to us. Her office, the people in her office, I don't think ever felt that she was a taskmaster. Wala talaga.
What's a regular day like?
Because she also continued working, di ba, all throughout.
Oh, yeah. No?
Yeah. So there were days that she would go off to do her work, and we would be in Malacanang doing our work.
Happily doing yours.
Yeah, and then
Without
sometimes
her presence.
No, a lot of times we just did it on our own, really.
Oh.
And when she would come, sometimes she'd come to check on what's going on, find out news about upcoming things, or I would go to her. Usually she'd come over if I tell her I need to talk to her about schedules or something. She'll come over because our legi is so near, so she'll just drop in, and I talk to her about her schedule. You want to accept this? You don't want to accept this? I recommend that you do this. Ganyan, that sort of thing.
Di ba pihikan sa tulad yan, yung mga appearances or where?
She's picky. Yes, she is picky about.
Which ones
yes,
to?
she did. But she also would listen to recommendations. Like if I recommend, this is an important one because ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. Still reluctant, but she would say yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But ano yun, may particular focus? This one, anytime. Yun yung ganun. Any
There are things that I know for sure.
advocacy.
If she's invited by that particular group, it's an automatic yes, because it's something that also she was passionate about.
Oh, which one were these?
Well, for instance, at the time she was working with Ricky Reyes on some of the yung mga
Sanggupit, sangsuklay.
yung mga ganon, yung livelihood.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's down for that all the time. And some of the woofy, yung workshops unlimited nila, which was she done from way before. So medyo a little bit barkada niya yan. I think Army wives or something. And they would do workshops for people to livelihood din, or sometimes it's teaching them etiquette, mga ganyan. She didn't do it, but that particular group, that's what they used to do. And so by that time, movie pa rin sila, but they would do other things na.
Pasig, yung, di ba?
Yeah, that one, the Piso para sa Pasig, Clean and Green, those were things that sa kanya naman talaga nang galing yan, di ba? I mean, those were started in her time talaga.
So ano yun? Must yan, given.
But those are normally. At least the Clean and Green activities, meetings, definitely she would go. Yeah.
So hindi stricto, I guess.
Hindi, well, not to her office. I think we were all kasi naman self-regulating, We didn't naman, we didn't naman cause her we tried not to cause her any trouble, right? And we would try to go out of our way to, I've always told our staff na, our life we're here to make Mrs. Ramos's life easier. If whatever we can do to help her in this position, that's what we're supposed to do.
How did she define her role? I mean, this, with regards to FVR, the presidency. I mean, how did she, from your vantage point, how did she see her role as First Lady?
I think what she used to do was she would go on these trips with FBR. She would see what there is elsewhere and see how we can bring that kind of technology or mindset back. So, she'd bring it back and then she'd say, oh, maybe we can do this, even if it's on a smaller scale or adjusted for local circumstances. She would do that. I don't know necessarily that she had an idea going into it what she was supposed to do as first lady, but I think as soon as she started with her own interests, her own passions. Environment has always been something that's very important to her. So she started with that. That's something that she started in that position. And yun na nga, I think, given that, that's because she's interested in that. When she goes abroad, yun yung tinitingnan niya. So when she comes back, that's what she brings back. Yun. So I don't think it was a definite, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do kind of thing. That's just what she ended up doing because that's what she's interested in and she felt we could do it here. Yeah.
But she also insisted on keeping her own professional life on track,
Yes.
And I think
the joke was always that my husband has small salary, so I have to continue working to earn my own.
someone has to sustain the family.
Ganon siya, di ba? She would say things like that.
Oh, yeah. My husband works for dirt cheap.
Yeah, and he works for government, right?
Yeah, I think FBR picked up on that as well.
And a lot of times FBR would donate his salary. He would often donate his salary. If he comes to one of the foundation, Clean and Green, I don't know, he's done. He donated his salary for various causes. Yeah.
How would Mrs. Ramos take to that?
That's why she would say that she has to earn her own money. My husband just donated his salary. Ganon siya. I think it's a routine that she's used
her
to.
independence.
Yes, correct. And I think I think it's a role model also as a working wife. I mean, just because you're first lady doesn't mean you're not. You're not doing any work. I mean, it's also work being first lady. But she had her own before she became first lady. So why not continue that?
The press corps, myself included,
Yes.
you had one word for her actually.
What?
Spunky.
Yes. Yes, you could say that. Definitely. That's a good word for her.
Sige nga, your interpretation of why?
Hindi lang talaga siya. She just won't let people dictate on her. She might let you convince her, but she won't. It will never be parang just being led. She's not like that. Even if you recommend that she go somewhere, you have to explain why you want her to go somewhere, and she will think about it, and then she will make a decision. Sometimes even if she doesn't want to do it, she will, but there's always a reason, and it's always a considered action. It's never just being led because somebody said so. She's never been that.
She was her own gal.
Talaga. She's a thinking person talaga. Yeah.
And you're right, role model for, I guess, modern day,
Yes.
the contemporary woman,
Yes. And I think I think not even just a role model. I think also representative, right? Because a lot of women work now. Sometimes more than one job, and then they still are the ones keeping the family together. I think it's not necessarily a role model because I think at that time already a lot of people were doing that.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite representative of the Filipino woman. Yes.
And she reinforced it.
Yes. Yes.
Despite the high profile.
Yes, di ba? First lady ka na, you don't have to work. No.
And even if her husband was the president, she'd still have her way.
Yeah. Well, she didn't have her way when she didn't want him to run for presidency,
Yeah.
I think give and take naman sila. Give and take naman.
Oh. Kayo nga, reluctant first lady. But how did she, I mean, how Kathy, tell me how difficult was it? Were there challenges merging? I suppose you got to work with Balong and company. I mean, merging
Hindi
the
kami nag-merge. Merging
syncing the
schedules.
schedules with, FVR and
I'm
Mrs.
trying to
Ramos.
I'm trying to think. Parang it never became an issue naman.
Talaga.
I think she would be the one to adjust to his schedule.
Okay.
So she would tell us, okay, these pockets I'm free. But she knows where she's supposed to be at certain times of the day. If she has to be with the president, she will be with the president, even if it means sacrificing work or something else she wants to do. So I think that's an internal. She's the one who makes those decisions. Pagdating sa amin, we're only just informed, okay, these are the times when I'm available. Ganon. I think before it even gets to us, napag-usapan na rin nila kung saan siya kailangan.
Okay, okay. But I guess, both of them insisted on having family time, no? Despite the
Yes.
the challenges of the job description.
FVR was much more in demand, I guess, because he is president and no holidays or weekends for the president.
Yeah.
He joins when he can, and I think they always try to, pull him in, the family. But I think Mrs. Ramos was more, she's more of a private person, and so, as much as she can, certain, Sundays or family days, we don't schedule anything on those days.
Ayun, must yun,
We try. I mean, there are times
Na hindi,
na break din, pero
Oo.
as much as possible, yeah, if we can, we keep those semi-sacred.
Okay. Oh, that's a nice term. Semi. Okay. Well, let me get back to so no other attempt to remind Mrs. Ramos. There was this thing about me
did.
not staying.
I did, and in fact, she asked me to speak with Balong.
Okay.
And Balong said, well, you told her to pick somebody to head the office, and she's chosen you. And I said, but we talked about it, and I said, I'm not confident being the head of the office. Eh, sabi niya, well, but she's happy with the way you're running it. Parang ganon.
Oo nga.
So then, after I spoke with Balong, how else could I, wala na. That's the end of it na. So I just, okay, I'm here till the end of the term. So I was there till the end of the term.
And, yeah, you stayed on up to...
The last I saw of them was they were getting onto a helicopter to leave. This was in Cavite, I guess. We had si Joseph Estrada's was in Cavite.
Cavite ba?
Yung na yun?
Cavite or Bulacan? Baraswain?
Baraswain, sorry.
Yeah.
Bulacan pala.
Took his oath.
Yes,
and,
correct. And
took his
so,
oath at
pumunta pa
the-
kami noon. Pumunta pa kami, I was still there. And then, that was the last event I did. So, talagang till the very end.
Oh, talaga.
Oo.
Parang last minute na yun.
Talagang yan. And then, when they boarded that chopper, hindi na siya president, right?
Yeah.
So, talagang till the very end. We
Sigh
were
of relief.
Huh?
Sigh of relief.
I
Now I
think,
can have a decent night's rest.
hindi naman ganyan si Mrs. Ramos. She doesn't wake me up in the middle of the night. No, nothing like that.
Oh,
Wala naman ganyan.
so not like that.
Yung the sleepless nights was when we were doing the visits. Yeah, those were
Yeah.
sleepless nights.
Oo.
Yeah.
Oo.
But
The-
that's not because of her. That's because of the way things run, di ba? And especially when you're leading up to it, you're talking to somebody abroad, and talagang minsan 2 o'clock in the morning, doon pa kami sa Malacanang talking to people.
Time difference.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me, were you with her when FBR was taken to hospital? Do you remember that?
Yes.
You were with her?
Yes, he was doing some sort of tour in Malacanang for somebody. And when they were starting to have an issue, he was actually brought to our office
Oh,
first.
OFL.
Yes,
Oh.
because he was
It was the closest.
toward there na, and so they brought him to our office 1st. So yeah, we knew about it, and
Was
the next
Mrs. Ramos there?
Mrs. Ramos came in also. If I recall correctly, she was there kasi they were not touring people, and then medyo may na-notice nga that something's going on. So then they brought him in. I think she was there briefly, and then of course they whisked him off away soon thereafter. But yeah, we knew about it. Yeah.
How was Mrs. Ramos?
I would say shaken, but still holding together naman. Hindi siya, she didn't, she was master of herself ba? You know what I mean? She didn't panic. But of course you can see that she's shaken.
Yeah.
That, because that's pretty serious what was going on. So, okay naman. I mean, very, very concerned. Very, very concerned. So, when they went off together naman.
Okay.
She went with him.
Steady girl.
Yeah, she's hindi siya,
Rattled or...
makikita mo shaken, but totally controlled.
But still
Controlled siya.
control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that, I mean, yeah, that was the only incident na nagkaroon ng problema actually with
As far as I
FVR,
know,
no?
yeah.
During the...
Yes.
But how was she like, in times of crisis or
That's probably
controversy?
the biggest, the one crisis that I really saw.
How did she
her.
handle, how did she handle crisis, or how did she handle...
I think she would be kind of the kind of person you want to have around in a crisis, because
Talaga?
medyo cool and ano pa siya, thinking. Some people pag nagpapanik na nawawala na, di ba? Siya thinking naman, even though makikita mo that ngarag,
There's
ngarag,
concern,
a little bit ngarag. She was still very okay. She knew what to do. Call this person, ganyan. Medyo ano siya.
Talaga?
Medyo
Still dishing out instructions.
because talagang, I mean, she knows what needs to be done, and she can do it. Yeah.
Paano nyo binalanse yung, I mean, I skipped it, I'm sorry. Paano nyo binalanse yung official as first OFL, and her international school stuff? Did she have a separate...
She had a separate
some
office. She had secretary
assistant
there from before. That was totally, we had nothing to do with her IS work. Basta those parts of her her schedule, unless absolutely necessary, those parts of her schedule were kept dedicated to IS. But they were again, si Mrs. Ramos na yung nag-compartmentalize. Siya na yung nagsabi, okay, these are days that I'm gonna go there. So try not to schedule anything for me then. And then these are the times that you can. Yung ganon. So I think it was 3 days a week or something she was there.
At IS.
Okay. So the rest of the time is the time that we had to schedule her. If we needed to schedule her, we'd schedule her on those days.
Yeah.
Hindi, talagang, separate. We had, I only went to her office maybe once because I had to deliver something. Other than that,
Her office, you
in
mean,
IS, yeah. Otherwise, totally separate. She had her own staff there. She had her own people there.
Separate
na
worlds.
talaga. Yes,
So-
yes. When she's at work, she's a professional yan. Wala yan. Hindi kami kasama dyan.
Ang husay bumalanse.
She's very, I would say she's quite organized. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Lessons learned, key learnings you picked up from Mrs.
Mrs.
Ramos
Ramos.
while you
I
were
think
working
just,
with her,
well, I think
even
her
though it
example.
was extended.
It's okay. I mean, I didn't mind working with her. It's just that I felt I couldn't give her what she needed. That's
Why?
why. Hindi yan yung training ko. At least si Ambassador Angie,
Deb
she's been
Econ.
years and years and years in the Department of Foreign Affairs. She has this worldview. And what did I have? I mean, I had very little experience at that point. I had a couple of years teaching experience, a couple of years doing some volunteer work for the UN. And then I was studying the rest of the time. So parang I felt she just needed somebody who was more in the league of Ambassador Angie. And I just didn't feel like I was in the league of Ambassador Angie.
But she saw it in you.
Sorry?
She saw
Not
it in
that-
you.
I think she just, if she couldn't have Ambassador Angie, she was at least familiar with me. So, and medyo trained naman din ako ni Ambassador Angie.
Very
so,
humble.
no, so kaya ko nang, I tried to continue the office the way that Ambassador Angie did. Yun.
It's okay. What did you pick up?
What did I pick up? I think really more from her example. That, she's really very low key. A lot of times we wouldn't even know some of the things that she would be doing to help other people because she didn't go to the office and there were no cameras and no reporters with her when she went to do it.
What do you mean?
She would sometimes she would go and give Christmas gifts to certain communities. Siya lang. And maybe one close in. Sila lang. No.
Yun na yun, yung aid.
Oo,
Yung security
ganon,
aid.
oo, ganun lang. Wala kaming, maybe the PSG would know about it.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't. She wouldn't even call us.
You were her staff.
No, it's nothing, it's not, it wasn't First Lady work. You know what I mean? It was her, and she wanted to do it.
Personal.
Personally. It wasn't First Lady work. So she didn't call us for those. And yun na nga, you don't see any media with her when she's doing that. It's really just her.
What does that tell you for character?
She's really like that talaga. She's very, I think she's quite giving, but you'll never know it because she does it all secretly. She does a lot of the helping behind the scenes.
No fanfare.
Wala talaga. So that's, that for me, that was very valuable example, role model. Yeah.
Okay. So, you already said that you heard her say na she doesn't want to be remembered, but let me throw that question to you. What do you want people to remember of Ming Ramos?
I'm not as familiar with some of the earlier first ladies. Except
I'm
for
not-
I'm just thinking lang. I guess I'm thinking in the pantheon of first ladies that we have from the Philippines. I just think she's the most genuine, the most real person. What you see is what you get, really. And when I run into her now, she's exactly the same now as she was, with all the glamour and the glitter of the position. When I see her now, no glamour and glitter, but she's exactly the same person. And that, I hope people will remember that about her. That she's really a genuine, the genuine article talaga. She doesn't change who she is based on the circumstances. She is who she is, no matter what outfit she's wearing.
Oh, yeah. What do you share? I mean, do people recognize you that you were head of Mrs. Ramos's staff?
Sometimes people from the old days, sometimes they remember me.
But generally,
Generally, no. There are people who still introduce me as such, although that was like another lifetime ago.
Yeah. What I was going to ask is, what do you share about that stint, that tour of duty? when people
Sometimes,
recognize or realize na, you were?
sometimes if they ask me about her, I would also say that she's really very unassuming, and she's the way she is. I mean, her very like her person doesn't change just because of even the people who are around her, or or the position that she's holding. It really doesn't change. She is who she is, no matter where you put her. So when people ask me about her, that's what I will say. That's what I have been saying. Normally, people ask me, oh, when they hear that I was that, they ask me how I got into that and that sort of thing. But less and less na now. I mean, I think, so much time has gone by, and a few administrations since then. Well, all I can say is, though, that for me, that was the best administration to work for.
You haven't worked in government ever since, ano?
No. No, I have not worked in government ever since. And I think partly because I haven't seen the circumstances I want to be working in government again. Siguro, ano lang, the stars aligned or something, because that's also my personality is very low key. So I think that was the best for me, that best position in the administration that I felt really did something for the country in recent history. So it was the best administration to work for, from my point of view.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no regrets na naantala. I mean, you wanted to do development, foundation work.
I got to do that. I got to do
Eventually.
that. Well, no, I got to do that even under the office of Mrs. Ramos.
Oh, okay.
I did some of that, which I think, in a way, that was good because it sort of fed that part of me that I wanted to do. But at the same time, I also was getting trained in doing this other, more of the, the protocol stuff. So, in a way, parang nasama rin naman. I mean, I wasn't out in the field, but I was at least getting to find out what other people were doing out in the field, which okay na rin. I wasn't disappointed naman to have gone and done that and be the representative of Mrs. Ramos in the meetings.
Yeah.
That was fine. Okay na nasa akin yun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a social cost to it all? I mean, family time.
Well, definitely family time. As I said, when we were doing preparations for visits, we would be in Malacanang till 3 or 4 in the morning, arranging for activities and finishing up the schedules and all sorts of things. But I think it's medyo exciting as a young person that you feel like you're really doing something, making a difference. Even though you're a small cog in the wheel, you feel like you're contributing to national development somehow.
Yeah.
Because when the president goes out and does his visits, he brings back a lot of things for the country, and he also represents the country abroad. And so I think the Philippines got, better media abroad at that time, which I felt in some small way I contributed to.
Yeah, part of the
So I
larger
take some
whole.
pride in that also. Yeah, so it wasn't
naman,
all, diba? I think. Plus, I actually did meet my husband there in Malacanang.
Oh,
That was he was my reward for sacrificing her for the country.
okay.
Because he had sent an invitation to the president for a Japanese NGO who was coming, and they wanted to meet the president. But the president said NGO more Mrs. Ramos's turf, right? And also she speaks Japanese, so she would have better conversation with him, right? So the invitation got sent to us, and so I had to be the point person to speak with Kenneth, and that's how I met him.
Wow!
Yeah, see?
Love story! Nabuo rin.
So yes, some a little bit social cost, but I think more reward.
Yeah. They were had to give up some stuff, but
Yes.
I gained
Yes,
something
yes,
too. Yeah.
that's right.
Oh, pero nasa gobyerno na ba si Kenneth nun?
No, he
He was with
he was
the
always following me. He was one step behind of me. After I left government, he joined
he
government.
joined.
And then
Hasn't quite left.
AIM. No, he left na. Wala na
Oh,
siya
no,
doon
for a
ngayon.
short while. Anyway, balikan ko lang ito
Sige.
very briefly. Yung scheduling niya, I mean, she insisted on having she insisted on having her own itinerary,
Yes.
because I do remember a few other first spouses who, just wanted to keep to themselves. But
So there were visits it was more like that. But a lot of times, she'd be invited also to do some things on her own, not with the president, because usually the president has, substantive foreign affairs things
yeah.
to talk about,
Bilaterals,
all that. And so hers was more on the either the environment or livelihood projects. But yeah, so and she was up for that to a certain extent. She didn't want to fill all her time doing it, but she wanted to see what other people were doing. Yun na nga, and because she wanted to bring back ideas, and if she could give it to one of the foundations to do, she would. Like she was also part of the Children's Museum, yung Museo Pambata.
Yeah.
Some of those ideas came from her. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And she's a linguist. How many other languages does she speak?
Well, actually, that's funny. I don't know how many more languages she speaks. I know she speaks some Japanese, and of course, she has some dialects of Filipino. English, obviously. Actually, I don't know what else she speaks.
No, anyway, that's okay. So how's the relationship these days? You've kept connected.
Yes, the boss called her kanina just to say hello, and I talked to her. She's at IS. She's at IS now.
Still working.
Yes, she's kept up with it because I really think it's good. I think older people really shouldn't retire, not do anything absolutely. And it keeps her in the social scene also. The people who are there. Makes her feel that she's still doing something that helps other people. I think it's great that she's still working at her age, right?
Can you imagine her not doing anything?
I have seen her not do anything, but even when she's not doing anything, she's doing something. You know what I mean? Even when she's like, there's something, always something going on. So even when she's like off, having me time or something, she's doing something. Yeah.
She's still on.
Yeah, she's still on. Right.
Okay. And how has the relationship developed? I mean, she was your boss for quite a while. Is it a friendship now? Is it
she's a very private person. I wouldn't
mother-daughter.
say. I wouldn't say it's a very close relationship. I don't see her very often anymore. When we see each other, she asks about my family. I ask about her family. A lot of times she tells me about her grandkids and if she's traveling or stuff like that. But yeah, also compartmentalized. I don't hear about her IS work. I don't hear about her woofy work. I don't hear about any of those things. So I'm just happy that my dealings with her was that part of her, that I get to meet her family, that she knows I know them. I took care of them also sometimes for state visits. And so, I mean, because I realize people who work for her at IS probably don't get to hear about the family unless they've met them, right? So I'm happy that I was exposed to that part of her, that, she feels comfortable talking to me about what's going on with her grandson, where he's studying, what he's doing now, that sort of thing.
What's kept the connection alive then? I mean,
Wala lang. Just when I bump into her, it's like we pick up where we left off. It it's yeah, it's not like, oh, parang nahihiya ako to talk to her because we haven't seen each other for a long time. It's never like that. She's always, when she sees me, she's always very welcoming, and she's, the first to ask nga, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. What have you been doing? Ganyan. So it's always just like that. I mean, she is a very private person. I didn't expect us to be buddies after. But ganyan,
But she was very warm when I heard.
ganon. She's like that talaga. She'll just talk about, she'll ask about, oh, how are you doing? Ganon. Yun. But hindi kami barkada. I mean, we don't see each other once a week or anything like that. But yeah, when we see each other, it's always just like I saw her yesterday. Parang ganon.
Given everything that you've gone through with the First Lady, Mrs. Ramos, would you do it all again?
Yes. Yes, I would. If it's her. And under those circumstances, yes. Definitely. I feel a little bit like a small part of history. Like I'm a little footnote in history because I worked with them. So yeah, I would.
Thank you. Salamat.
Thank you.